The opening weekend schedule is out, and it's full of stacked matches from both regions, including a stacked Dallas homestand, including Dallas, Houston, Toronto, and Washington. We're a little ways out from there, but I figured I'd go over some games that I think will be ones to watch out for. The schedule for North America is on the 5th, Gladiators versus Excelsior, Paris versus Shock, Atlanta versus Florida. On the 6th, we have Vancouver versus Boston, Shock versus London, Dallas versus Houston. On the 7th, we have Washington versus Toronto, Excelsior versus the Reign, and Gladiators versus the Uprising. On the 8th, we have Titans versus Spitfire, Florida versus Mayhem, Dallas versus Washington, and Houston versus Toronto. In APAC, on the 6th, we have Shanghai versus Philadelphia, Chengdu versus Guangzhou. On the 7th, we have Chengdu versus Shanghai, Seoul versus Philadelphia, and Valiant versus Hangzhou. On the 8th, we have Guangzhou versus LA Valiant and Hangzhou versus Seoul. Let's get started. I want to preface this by saying I recommend watching every match you can. It'll be a super fun and chaotic time, and who knows what'll happen. This is really simply to highlight the ones to prioritize in case you can't watch everything. I'll pick one match from each region per day. For North America on the 5th, I'd have to recommend the Gladiators versus Excelsior. Gladiators have a ton of new talent that need to prove themselves, like Patafan, Reiner, and even Ans. Meanwhile, and what better way to pick off their season than with a win over what looks like a top team in North America? Meanwhile, the Excelsior likely want to show they are top tier again with a win over a very highly regarded opponent. The matchups will also be legendary. Flora and Yaki versus Kevster and Ons is heaven on earth, while Reiner versus Kellen on who is the better rookie main tank will be entertaining as well. It'll definitely be close. Paris versus Shock could also be interesting too, just to see Glister compete against his old team. In the first look at the Shock rookies. Hydron versus OG and Ultraviolet with Florida versus the Reign will also be entertaining, but Glads and Excelsior is just a one to watch out for. For APAC on the 6th, kind of meh games this day. I'll pick Shanghai versus Fusion just to see the new Fusion rookies highlighted. But Chengdu versus Guangzhou will likely be the closer game. Yeah, it's kind of tough. Then on Friday in North America, it's a pretty stacked day, but I have to go with the Battle of Texas. It's a long-standing rivalry, with both teams making major pickups during the offseason. Houston is looking to pull off the upset here with all their new acquisitions and getting revenge after being dominated by Dallas most of the time last year, while Dallas is looking to prove their dominance in NA yet again. It'll be a banger. Their match in Week 1 last year was great as well, and the insane crowd reactions, it's going to be awesome. I also think Titans versus Boston will be amazing. Titans are going to look to prove they're in the upper echelons of North America after their rebuild, but Boston will be a tough opponent for them, especially with their prized possession striker back. On Saturday for APAC, significantly better games here. I'm going to have to go with Chengdu versus Shanghai, though. The top two teams in APAC right now, in my opinion. Shanghai trying to prove they're the best in the world still, but the prodigal Aprita might be the key the Hunters need to rival Shanghai. Plus, who really knows? The Dragons look better now. But last year, the Hunters started the league with a bang by stomping the Dragons Week 1. So maybe the Hunters can pull it off again. It's a very hype match. Valiant versus Hangzhou is also very hype. Both teams are very close in roster, and seeing Dia and the others in action will be very cool. Hangzhou also has a ton of potential with their rookie support line and Alpha E. Both of these games are going to slap, and you can't really go wrong with either. On Saturday in NA, we have some pretty good matches too, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to Toronto versus Washington. It's our first look at either of these teams, and it should be close. Washington needs to prove their support line won't drag them down, and Toronto is looking to prove they truly are in the upper echelons of NA. New York versus Atlanta should be good as well. Both are very close in skill and looking to prove themselves at the top of the top again after some downgrades. For Sunday in APAC, I have to go with Guangzhou versus LA Valiant. Both teams are looking to prove themselves yet again after a down year, with some massive pickups, and they are very close in rosters. Is Guangzhou going to prove that they are top tier yet again? Or will the Valiant pull through with a big brain diff and entirely new roster? This game, alongside Los Angeles Valiant versus Hangzhou, will be crucial in determining the lower echelons of APAC early in the season. Finally, for Sunday in LA, I have to go with Houston versus Toronto, but a lot of these games will be close. Houston versus Toronto have the Lastro versus his old team storyline. The teams are very close in skill. It's very tough even now to say who'd win this game. It'd be close for sure and would help round out the mid-tier team power rankings a bit. But Dallas versus Washington should kind of be a wash. Though DK could power up against his old team, it could be very entertaining watching him pop off. The Bread Bowl rematch is kinda hype, as they both have a lot of European talent, but it looks like a wash for Vancouver. Same with Paris versus Florida, though they could be interesting. In conclusion, if you can only watch one game per day for each region, I'd prioritize Los Angeles versus New York, Shanghai versus Philadelphia, Houston versus Dallas, which is the highlight match of the week for me, that you have to watch that. Chengdu versus Shanghai, Washington versus Toronto, Guangzhou versus Valiant, and Houston versus Toronto. Thank you for watching, and remember to like and subscribe for more. I upload almost daily Overwatch League content, and I'm trying to hit 100 subs by Season 5, so any subscription helps greatly. Thanks.